Hi, everyone. Welcome back to another class here at the Normalized Money Show at Katie's House Foundation. And my name is Kirsten VanderJagt. I have Julie on today. Julie, how are you?
I'm very good. Thank you. Welcome, everyone.
Today, we are talking about the different learning styles and specifically what is your learning style as it relates to, soaking up whatever someone's telling you. And the reason that this is important to money is because if you can't hear your teachers or your parents or your supervisor, that will be very hard. And the reason that I say here is because if you look at the screen here, you're going to see number 1 is a visual learner and number 2 is an auditory learner. And I am not auditory. So when people talk to me, I have to try really hard to focus in on what they're telling me. And, some people might say that that's terrible. But what's important in this, class right now is that I recognize that. I have to know that about myself so that way I can write things down and read them. I learn by reading things, kind of like, my memory is just visual. And so that's how I learn is by writing it and then reading my own writing. Now, Julie, how do you learn?
Now, I am actually two of these. I'm actually the kinesthetic, where I actually like to look and I actually connect things and purposely like hands-on, but I also more am a visual learner. So if it's something somebody shows me, or if it's something that I can actually do myself, I think I learn and retain better. I'm definitely not an auditory person necessarily. And I know that from my background. A lot of times in stressful situations, as a police officer, we get tested in stressful situations a lot in training. And I've learned that I have auditory exclusion. So the first thing that goes on my senses is my auditory. And I think that tells me a lot about how I learn. And by doing and by visually seeing things, I definitely learn better.
So, do you find it's helpful that you know that about yourself?
Oh, absolutely. It's not only helpful in a stressful situation, but it's also helpful in the sense that I know that when someone's talking and this, like if I'm forced to read and write, that I have to incorporate some of those other things into it, that I look at pictures or, and I know a lot of the younger generation likes to watch videos, and I can understand why they like to watch videos, because maybe they are more of a visual learner and they have to see things. They can't just imagine them in your head. And I think that makes it so that I can retain things, especially if I'm super interested in it. I think I can retain it anyway. But if I wasn't so interested in it, maybe people have a real, kind of aversion to finances, right? To learn about finances, and that you learn better the things you don't like by learning the way that you're automatically kind of programmed to absorb things.
Yes, I think that it is super important for the people listening and also for parents, teachers, and mentors to sit with the younger generation to help them identify their learning style. I will tell you, as a mother, and me being someone who's not auditory and having our oldest son who's not auditory, and that can be a problem for somebody who teaches in an auditory fashion where they talk to you and then they think that you are going to go and retain, difficult directions or finance. But let me just give you an example as it relates to parents and teenagers or teachers and teenagers. For someone who's not auditory and you are giving a lecture and you say, hey, I need you to do these 5 things when you go home for homework. If you don't see them actually write that down, they are not going to come back with that being done. And if you don't know that about your student or your child, and you think the next day or that night, why didn't you get your chores done? Some parents will yell, right? Why didn't you get that done? And it makes the child feel like a failure when they're not. It's that they they don't know that they have to write it down and then go and visualize it. Like you're saying, maybe they do need to be given a couple YouTube videos on, if you want them to do something, fold the laundry, and you don't have the time to show them how to fold the laundry, it's not their fault that they weren't given a way to learn that information. And yet we do need to hold everyone accountable. We need to hold our children accountable and ourselves accountable. So that way they were given the proper support in order to actually get that done. Wouldn't you agree?
I would agree with that. Yes.
So we
Very.
saw that a lot, and we continue to see that a lot at the Normalized Money Project, which, last year was a night class, and we'll probably have to kick that up as a night class again in 2024 because, I'm back to seeing that the teenagers just listening on YouTube is not enough for most of them. They need to actually go through the lesson plans and turn in the homework. And also I need to know what their learning styles are, because just listening passively on Facebook might not be enough for some people. So on this class right now, we are asking you in the next few minutes to jump onto the link that we're sharing with you. It'll be at the bottom of this video. And for you to take some time to try and identify which of these 4 major learning styles are you. That way, moving forward while you're taking these 10-minute classes, you can apply that information and apply it to everything. And also you can be honest with your teachers and say, hey, I'm going to do my best to remember what you're telling me, but I've got to just sit here and take a few minutes to make myself flashcards. Or if you have to actually walk through that information a few times, then you might have to physically, I don't know, fold the laundry 3 times before you get it right. And it's perfectly fine if the first 2 times it wasn't ideal, but on the 3rd time it might be A+, right?
Yeah. So on this website, is this a test that they can take then, or do they need to read through this and figure out, like, just by what they like and what they don't like, how to identify their learning style?
This is information that you read over, and it looks like it'll take you about 5 minutes. I would suggest Googling maybe some quizzes, to find out, or just thinking back on your past, what has worked for you, or what do you naturally do in order to retain information. Let me share
Yeah,
something
because
with you guys.
I don't think there's a test that you could actually give somebody to figure this out. Like I said, I mean, I would have to say that I know myself by stressful situations, and by, like, knowing what happens in a stressful situation to me, how I retain things better, or, like, thinking about situations where I have to recall things, and that, like, recalling things for me, like, obviously visually is an easy way for me to recall things, whereas, like, if somebody's talking to me, I'm not going to recall it as good. So maybe that's a way for people to also think about, in a stressful situation or traumatic event, if they, like, you are going to remember certain things more. And, obviously there's a little bit of trauma, induced things in the middle there, but maybe by, not necessarily taking the test per se, but thinking about how, the best place that you've remembered things, or how you've done things in the past that have really worked for you. Because, like I said, I'm more than one of these. I can definitely learn more than one way. It's not just one certain thing, but I definitely think that I know what I don't do good at, and that's more helpful sometimes. And trying not to be so anti, like I said, if you have a aversion to finances and you just feel like you've always failed with finances, and that you're trying to get back on your feet and you feel like it can't ever work, that learning, through different ways might make it click for you.
I would agree that if you know what you don't do well, how you don't learn well, we're focused here on 4 things. And so if you know one of them is out, then just do process of elimination. And then There is actually a great article that you can read called Learning Through a Fire Hose, if you guys want to look that up. And it talks about when you go to medical school or when you have to learn a lot of information. And the short of that is looking at the information one time in some kind of medium and then looking at it again in a different medium and then a third time in a different medium. And so you have three different types of learning in order to intake a lot of information. And so they will say if you're going to medical school, you might want to read the information the day before class. You're going to reread it again the day of class, or you're probably going to do something hands-on with a skeleton. And then you're probably going to listen to somebody lecture about that. And then you're maybe going to read notes or write notes and read those back to yourself. And throughout those multiple ways of learning, something should stick with you. And that's how you become someone who can retain the information. Because again, doctors, they have to learn a ton of stuff, and even still they're always learning. So please look at this, guys. Make sure you know what your one or two styles are and what your one that you absolutely don't do well at is, so that way you can intake all kinds of info.
Yeah, and I encourage anyone listening, make a comment below and let us know how the best way that you're a learner, and that what you've done to discover that, to maybe help somebody else.
Definitely. So if you find value in this content, please like and subscribe, and we will see you on the next class next week.